Today, we're going to take a bunch of really cheap ingredients and make a bunch of flock. Unlike my last flock video, this one won't even cost you a trip to the hardware store. Stick around after the bump, and I'll teach you some things. Between now and then, remember to like, share, subscribe. You can find the links in various places, and I'll see you in just a moment. In this first section, I'm going to cover 3 types of cheap flock, starting with the most expensive down to the least expensive. At least 2 of these I'm going to use in next week's build when I put some vegetation on that dais. So let's cover those really quick and move on to coloring them in the next section. First, we've got spices. I was going for a little bit coarser flock. I want like leaves and things. So I had some spices. These I got for free. These were left in a house that had some damage. They sat there for a long time. When they went in to clean it up, I was like, oh, I can use those, and grabbed them. However, these are normally about $9 a bottle. That's about the same price as Scenics. So if you're ordering Scenics from online, or if you're getting them from your local craft store or hobby store, they're going to be about the same price as the herbs. You can find herbs on sale a lot more often than you can find Scenics on sale, though, so you can probably still find a good deal. I got mine free. You might be able to if you look around, but they're going to be a little pricey if you don't. But but it is an alternative. So I wanted a coarse mixed flock. As you can see, got some pretty good leaf-looking flock here, and this is from 4 different kinds. This has Italian seasoning, which in itself is about 6 or 7 different kinds. Some cilantro. There wasn't very much in here. There's only a little bit in here. This was only a little bit full. Parsley flakes. There was quite a few of these, so that's what most of the brighter green is in there. And last, there was a tiny bit of rosemary. About 1/3 of this jar was full. So all of those ended up in there for my coarse flock. Now, depending on which spices you use, you can get different coarseness. For example, if you want something really fine, you can go with something like paprika or ground white pepper, which as you can see is very, is very fine powder. So both of those will make a fine flock. And if you want a sort of medium coarse, black pepper is a little bit larger, and so is cayenne pepper. So both of these will make sort of a medium flock. But that's what you can do with the various herbs and spices. Next, I drink a lot of tea. I drink mine in tea bags. If you drink it in loose leaf, that'll work as well. Coffee can come out with a very similar texture, but I get hundreds of these a month. I drink about 6 cups of tea a day, and I'll take them and save them up dry. You want them very, very, very dry. You do not want these to have any moisture in them so that you can avoid some mold. So I take these and I let them sit and dry. I actually have a colander and I let so that the air will blow through them, and then every once in a while I collect them, and then I rip them open and tear all of the tea out. And as you can see, this makes sort of a medium coarse flock. This is a little bit too fine for leaves, but it makes a good moss, grass. You could even color it gray or black and use it for dirt or rock. So this is sort of medium coarse, and this is fairly inexpensive. Now technically it's free because I'm drinking the tea anyway, and this is the leftovers. So, but if you're buying it just for this whole thing, if you get the cheap teas, is about $5 worth of tea. So, because you can get tea for as little as like $1.50 a box if you want to do it that way. Okay, and last is free. Literally dirt I had laying in the backyard. Now, I've talked before in other videos where I sorted things by the different gauges of the gaps between the wires. So for this, I just used the most coarse one, and I just took some dirt out of the backyard. This was actually in a pot, but it had come out of the yard and had maybe some potting soil added. And as you can see, that's got some fairly fine bits. Also, it's got actual like rocks and things in it. So what I did is I took that and ran it through the sifter. This is what's left in it. Now, some of this will get sorted at another point through a different sifter, so I can catch some of these smaller grains out of there, which will make a nice, good coarse flock. But for now, what I'm left with is super fine dirt. It's not as fine as some of my sands I have from some of my other collections, and I have not sorted this all the way through all 3 types of strainer. So I could actually sort this into like 3 different grains, but I'm going to keep it like this. And this makes good general all-purpose crack filler. This can go between stones, this can go where rubble has fallen, this can be dirt on just the surface of your build. So nice generic fine grain for essentially free and a little bit of time sifting it. So that's the 3 that I'm probably going to end up using on my dais for the next couple of 3 weeks as I do the vegetation. So we're going to do a little bit of jump here, and then I will get around to showing you how I'm going to color some of those leaves for the vines I'm doing next week. See you in just a sec. Ready to throw some paint into these. I'm going for a mix. I want some different greens so that it breaks it up a little. It's not all looking the same and sort of cartoony. I'm also going to have a red and an orange for some sort of fall colors. So I've got a bunch of cups here ready to go. I don't like to paint directly on my mat, so I've got a protective sheet down. I've got my rinse water here for when I'm done with the brushes, wet towel in case I need it, and good to go. So let me show you the paints I'm using. These 2 are Crafter Square from Dollar Tree. They don't even have colors on them. One's yellow, one's green. I've got this called Craft Essentials, and this is Christmas green. I've got Apple Barrel Bright Red, and I've got Apple Barrel Kelly Green. So, already got some yellow in the cup. Gonna make some orange. Not gonna go with a straight yellow. Gonna have some orange, so I want some red in there with that. Take my ratty brushes. You don't want one that's really nice because of what we're mixing up here. So, mix that up, going for my orange. That's still a little red, so let me get a little more yellow in that. Yep, liking that. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm not even mixing it 100%. I figure a little variation is a good thing. So take that and some of my coarse flock that I'm using as leaves. I'm gonna add that in there. Now that paint will go a long way, so you can add more of these leaves than you think. And just mix them into that paint. Now, that's got a good coverage, but they're not really sinking in yet. So you don't have to do this every time, but you can add a little bit of water to it if you want. Since I'm wanting these to look like fall colors and sort of dead and dying anyway, the green and brown that are already on there are fine with me. So I'm just going to try to get this orange to go in here. I'm not actually adding any water to this. Then you want to take a tray. You don't want this to really clump up. These are going to be leaves, so we're going to glue them on a different way. So you don't want these to really clump like you might with clump foliage, since these are going to be on some of my vines next week. So I'm going to sort of break these up. Hopefully they won't stick together too much. Once they're done, I'll crack them apart so that they break back into their individual leaves. So that's one color ready to go. Wipe this paint off my hand. The rest are pretty straightforward. I'm going to do some orange on the T. I'm going to do some red and all 3 greens on each of the T and the herbal flock. And then I will be back once they're all on the trays just to show you that before I go put them off to dry. So give me just a few minutes and I'll have the other 9 of these done. I'll be right back. That's all 10 colors done. I've got 2 of the greens here, both in the coarse, 2 of the greens here, both in the tea flock. As you can see, some of these color the tea a lot more, some of the tea sort of takes over, which is great. I'm going for variation, so that's beautiful. I'm loving this. So I've got all these spread out, and I'm going to let them dry overnight. Give them a few hours to take care of that. As you can see, this is really, first off, it's really messy. That's fine. It'll wash right off because it's all acrylic. It'll wash off in just a second. but it's really, really bad for these brushes. So you don't want to use a nice, good, clean brush unless you just have disposable brush income. All right. Makes your water all mucky. I don't know if you can see, but it's sort of swampy in there with all the herbs floating. Gets all my little mixers and ramekins dirty. But that's okay. I'm going to clean all this up, let this dry overnight, set this in front of a fan, make sure it gets good and dry, and I'll be back in just a few seconds for y'all, overnight for me, to show you grinding it back up into the powder so that we can use it for next week. Be right back. Got all those dried out. It's now the next day. As you can see, got my 10 different colors. And all we're going to do now is take these and break them up into their smaller pieces. Now you can either just do this by hand like I'm doing here, or if you have some that are a little harder to get broken up, you can use something like a coffee grinder and grind them into smaller chunks. Most of these should come apart by hand since we didn't have any glue or anything in here. It was just the paint. So I'm going to get some of these ground up, and I'm going to end up putting them into some small jars. I got a bunch of jars, these little shaker tops, things like that. So I'm going to shake some of these up into some smaller ones. Meantime, here's some of the fall colors. I'm going to put some pictures on the screen here to show you some of the types of fall colors I was going for with the reds and the oranges. And then I will be right back to show you some of these applied to the base of one of my trees from an earlier video. So there they are, all ground up. I've got my leaf flocks over here. I've got my T-flocks over here. Anything that didn't fit, grind up into parameters. I added to a generic box to catch all. It doesn't matter what colors go in here because these will all become rubble later and get painted over. Most of these flocks will not get painted over. So that's it, it's ready to go. I'll be right back to show you the basic application onto a tree. PVA glue, any white glue will work. A little bit of water in case you need to thin it out and spread it around a little. I'm not going for the diluted PVA that I normally use for like large surfaces and such, because we're just trying to get this in certain spots underneath the tree. So you want your brush a little bit wet so it'll flow a little easier. You take your glue. Now these have little roots on them, so I'm going to try to put the glue in between each one. I want the roots to still have a little bit of exposure. Got that set between each of the roots down there. Just spread that into the recesses. Once you've got it in all the recesses, you decide which color you want. In this case, I'm going to go with my sort of medium gray on the leaf flock, and I'm probably going to hit it with a little bit of the brighter ones above it. Now this is a nice spring or summer tree. You notice it doesn't have any fall colors, so I'm not using fall colors on the ground. These are just the generic leaves that have been blown off by the wind, not because it's fall. And I'm just going to sprinkle those around. I want to hit every place up with the glue. Now, like I said, I want the roots to have a bit of exposure, so I'm just brushing off a few of the roots here. Just doing that by hand is fine. You can use a brush if you want. It's PVA, it's not going to hurt you any. And that's it. It's ready to go. All right, I'll be back in just a second for a wrap-up. There you go, campaigners. Simple ingredients, 4 kinds of flock, 2 of which I showed you on camera today on the coloring. And over the next 2 weeks, I'll show you how to use the leaf flock that we used for the base here as a vine. And the week after that, I'll show you how to turn some of the fine flock into mosses on the sides of the walls. And I hope you come back for those. In the meantime, remember, like, share, subscribe, keep up with us on social media. And until next time, I wish you all the luck with your campaign.